I'm going to give a bit of a brief introduction because I'd like you to understand the framework that I'm coming from. It sounds a bit tinny still. Is it good, bad? It's not good yet, right? Good. So I'll keep talking my introduction and they can fine-tune the introduction because this isn't so important. It is important to me. When I started my profession, for about the first 10 years or so, I was a therapist in Lakewood. And I was doing my job. I think I was somewhat mediocre, trying to work out how to do the job. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu put a gift into my life when our eldest daughter, who was then 14, went off the derech. Shall we say she went off very hard? It's hard to explain exactly. It was in the days so many years ago when it wasn't very popular to go off the derech. It certainly wasn't very popular for girls to go off the derech. And I was a somewhat well-known therapist already. It took us by surprise. And to a great degree it shattered my confidence. And I'll be honest, there were times during the next Kufa when I had serious reservations about continuing as a therapist. I had considered changing professions. I felt I was cheating people by pretending to help them when in those days I wasn't comfortable yet to talk about it. Kadosh Baruch Hu actually sent me a gift one afternoon. A couple came to see me and they start telling their story. Actually, it was rather uncanny. Their first names were the same as my wife and I, the couple. And they started telling me about the story of their 14-year-old daughter who'd gone off the derech and all the troubles they had with her. And halfway through the session, not even halfway in, about a third of the way into the session, I stopped and I said to them, look, I think you may be here under false pretenses. So let me tell you something. And I told them about my parsha that we had suddenly fallen into. And I said, look, I'm not going to charge you if you want to leave. I totally understand that. And I apologize for any misunderstandings. But I'm not sure if you really want to work with me. And they smiled and looked at each other. And then they looked at me and they said, well, why do you think we came to you? What, you think people don't know? And I have to be honest, I did. I didn't know people knew. And they all know. Everybody knows. In fact, when your kid goes off, you're the last one to know. The neighbors know. Your relatives know. Everybody knows. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent me that gift. And that gift was very, very important to my life. And I decided to do this and dedicate myself to trying to take what I could learn from my own journey, incorporate what I could learn from now thousands and thousands of other people's journeys, and try and realize, there's a bigger picture here. And, simplistic answers and solutions, these will not serve us well. They actually hurt us. Well-meaning, but very, very superficial, thoughtless answers can actually hurt us. They create a false sense of hope. They lead us in the wrong direction. They almost always make us do things that we regret later. So I set out on a journey where I asked myself, can I sort of be bigger than this parsha and try and think, what is this really about? What is Hashem telling us? How does this fit in the scope of the world, of history, of Klal Yisrael, of Yadus? This is not an anomaly, but this is a message, and this is a gift if we can see how to embrace it. And I set out on a journey, a personal journey, to try and understand that gift and to see what we could do with it. Over the next years, 5 of our very learning disabled kids also went through the Parsha. We have 8 children. There were times in the distant, my memory doesn't serve me exactly well, but there were times when I wasn't so comfortable to talk about it, I confess. But through this journey, Baruch Hashem, all of those children returned to Shmiras HaMitzvahs. They returned to be fine human beings, exceptionally excellent, caring Jewish people, trying to work out their journey in service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But it takes us expanding ourselves to embrace this journey, to understand what this is about globally, to let go of the pratim and the embarrassment and the shame and trying to fix it so quickly. And it demands the shift where I can really primarily look at fixing me first. It's like the metaphor of the aeroplane. We've all seen it when you're on the aeroplane and they show you the safety message. And they always show you, put on your oxygen mask first and then put the one on your child afterwards. And I've come to believe and see clearly that if we put the focus, the dogish, on fixing our kids first, we will fail. And what we must do is go on this journey, a very personal journey for each and every one of us, to work out our own kinks, to see what it is I have to fix about me, to see what this parsha kicks up inside me that in all honesty I'm not comfortable with. The remainder of every one of us, of our tikkun amidus, of our shleimus ha'adam, that we know that's what we're here for in this world, to see that first, to put our oxygen, our spiritual oxygen mask on first, to take care of my issues, so I can then put that mask on my child and help then afterwards. Somewhere in 1998, 99, I don't remember when, the Jewish Observer published an article by a very noted mechanech. He's not alive anymore. He's a wonderful person. And I took exception to it. I'd never written to a magazine in my life. I just did my private thing, got on with my life, tried to pay the bills and take care of my family. But, they had a little box where they brought out this box to highlight a nakuda. And this box said that it is the overwhelming consensus of mental health professionals that children going off the derech come from dysfunctional homes. Now, I found that odd. I found it odd because I was pretty convinced my home was not dysfunctional. I imagine there's 1 or 2 people here who could relate to that feeling. But the notion was, and somehow, that yes, they all come from dysfunctional homes. And for the first time in my life, I took pen to paper and I wrote to them, together with a colleague, and I challenged what they'd said. I asked them, perhaps you're putting the cart before the horse. Maybe the problem with the child will create dysfunction in the home. And maybe then, and only then, you can look and say, yes, this home is in dysfunction. Maybe it needs to be to save its child. Maybe it needed to move there. So I wrote an article together with a colleague, a letter to the editor, where I challenged what I felt was both wrong and dangerous. Because I understood that the micromanaging of kids to try and fix them, which is going to occur if we believe that the world will see us as these dysfunctional people if we have struggling kids. So the Yetzer Hara is that we're going to fix our kids quickly so the world won't look at us as dysfunctional. And that micromanaging fixing actually greases the rails of kids going off the derech. That was my argument. And if you remember, then they put out the famous edition of Children on the Fringe, and something changed. Something changed. I've tried to do a lot of research over the years to understand this. You know, this idea that kids are coming from dysfunctional homes was abusive and it was wrong. It was very self-serving. But it didn't help any of us. Because if we're just going to say, okay, so we're all dysfunctional, so let's just blame the dysfunctional people, and everyone else can say, well, I'm obviously not dysfunctional. Apparently, until I have a kid off the derech, and that suddenly makes me dysfunctional, apparently. I found that to be abusive. I met an awful lot of wonderful people who had kids who went off, and who struggled with this parsha. And what was more interesting, this notion of dysfunctional homes, you know, I started doing my research. And what I noticed was that even in the so-called dysfunctional homes where these kids are coming from, lo and behold, in the majority of such homes, most kids didn't go off the derech. So if the notion was the family is dysfunctional, well, how come only the minority of a minority of those homes, the kids went off the derech? How's that possible? If dysfunction is the reason, we'd expect all the kids to go off. And of course that didn't happen. And in fact, what we began to understand is that enough with the boichsvaras, enough with the knee-jerk reaction to what is a very, very confusing sugya. Enough with making grandiose statements, klaliastic statements about this is why kids are going off. This is the reason, as if someone actually knows. People ask me, I'm doing this work for 25 years, I cannot tell you authentically what causes any particular child to go off. If you show me any particular child, I can probably show you what caused that child to go off. But I'll show you the same symptoms with another child, the same challenges and nisyonis with another child who didn't go off. So how exactly is that the cause they went off? It's not a cause, Rabbi say, it's a description. We have to let go of these notions that somehow we're in charge and that we have these God-given powers of knowledge and understanding. And we certainly have to let go of the deep shame and pain that comes with the parsha, of feeling blamed, of feeling responsible, as feeling we've caused it. I've met people who had truly dysfunctional homes. I have worked with families where there's no question their family was highly dysfunctional. And yet I've seen kids in such homes somehow steig out of such families to become rabbonim, to become doctors and therapists and lawyers, to become women who are skonim and teachers, and somehow stood on the back of that dysfunction to become super special. So no, we have to get rid of all these ideas and notions that we think we know what causes it. While at the same time we have to get honest to try and understand what happened to my child. What's happening to my other children? And how can I best help them through their parsha? What can I do? Through Nefesh International, I co-chaired 4 conferences where we brought hundreds of mental health professionals, Rabbanim, Mechanchim, together for a few days to analyze, debate, discuss, and argue, and see if we can work out what's going on. What is actually behind all this? What's causing all this? Can we understand it? Because if we can, perhaps we can do some prevention. Perhaps we can help kids come back. So we ran a bunch of conferences, think tanks, even published the material. We came up with a list of 24 risk factors, loosely grouped in 3 areas. Individual risk factors, like disabilities, problems kids had. We looked at family problems and issues, the families going through their own crises within the family context. And then we looked at external things that happen to kids, like abuse. It's neither internal nor is it it's not in the family, it's outside the family. And we put together a list of about 24 risk factors, and I went out there to research, and I talked to kids, hundreds and hundreds of kids, and I went through the list with them, asking them, did any of this ever happen to you? And if it happened to you, what was the impact? When were you treated? Did anyone ever talk to you about the problems? It was primarily, I did it for kindergarten through 8th grade, and we looked at these 24 risk factors, asking, did these things happen to you? And if they did, what age were you? What grade were you in when it happened? Let's say your parents got divorced. Well, what grade were you when they got divorced? You were in 1st grade. Okay. So then the question was asked, so what age were you when someone came and tried to help you? When you had effective intervention in a compassionate and therapeutic way to help you deal with your pain and struggles about that issue. If you were diagnosed with ADD, what grade were you in when you got that diagnosis? And what grade were you in when you felt you had effective help for that problem? And something tragic and astonishing emerged. We had 24 risk factors. 2 things emerged. This research went on for a year or 2. We put all the information together, and we now know the truth. Then it was hard to hear. But all the risk factors but 1 were clustered in 46% and down of the kids reported 23 out of the 24 risk factors were reported by 46% of the kids up to. And 1 risk factor was reported by 80% of the kids, which we all now know was sexual abuse. We certainly in the early days did not understand the impact of sexual abuse. We didn't even understand what it was. To this day, we're still struggling to understand the experience of a sexually abused child. Because for most of us, we're clueless as to what exactly that experience is. People are still saying to kids, can't you just get over it? And the kids feel this. And no, they can't just get over it. We have a long way to go to understand the truth behind what hurts our pained kids, to really deeply grasp that pain. And we as parents, this is our first obligation and responsibility, to get into their shoes, to be in that place of pain with them, to really deeply resonate and let go of the notions of, can't you just get over it? Okay, so we know, we understand, it stopped happening. Can't we just move on? And yet somehow it comes out of us, probably because we're frightened. We're scared for ourselves. We're scared for our kids. We're scared for their lives, their shidduchim, our family name. Who knows what we're scared of? Oh, but we're scared. And so we become a little controlling. We want to fix it quickly. And we find it so hard just to be with it. Just to be with it. That word be can you just, if you close your eyes just for a moment and ask yourself, can I find a place in my heart where I can just be with them? Ima noichi b'tzara. Can I be with you in that place of pain? Because that's the place where healing starts. And it doesn't start till we can get into that place with them where I can be with you in your place of pain. Instead of trying to fix you, to shift you, to move you, but to be with you. I have to start there. These conferences I ran led to a journey. The journey was about the dual roles of prevention and recovery. To understand, what will it take? What will it take to prevent this? Can we? Is it even possible? One of the other things that emerged when we did the research was, think about it. We did research with kids, asking them to report their experiences between kindergarten and 8th grade. Basically 8 years of their lives. At this point they're about 13 years old. Children reported on average a 6.5-year gap between when the problems occurred to them and when they had effective intervention, healing, treatment, anything. Caring. Someone got involved effectively to help them. 6.5 years of a child who is 13 years old, who doesn't become so aware and thoughtful till they're about 4. 6.5 years is about 70% of their life. Imagine any of us going through a traumatic experience, feeling our life is being ripped from us, feeling we're made into utter, complete failures, and having to spend 70% of your life languishing in that pain and fear, that hurt and shame, without effective treatment for 70% of your life. We have to be with that. We have to start in a place where we can be with that feeling, where we can look at our children and feel that pain. And from that place, perhaps we can walk towards healing. But that's the place we have to go to. We have to let go of the rush to fix. And instead, we have to rush into a place of being with them. Ima anochi b'tzara. So they know I resonate to you and I don't blame you. I don't blame you for anything. What child ever deliberately signed up to go off the derech? Never happened. Every single one of these kids reacted to external circumstances they knew nothing about, did not comprehend or understand, could not protect themselves from. And never we have the cruelty to blame them. It's pasha cruel. Imagine if after 1 year we all came to Kol Nidri and we found in our stender a pink slip from the Rabbeinu Shalom. You're fired. Get out. And with that came a whole narrative of everything you committed to last year by Ne'ilah. All those commitments. And the Rebbeinu Shalom left a sheet on your stender letting you know, hello, this is what you said last year. These are your words. You made a commitment. Let me show you how badly you failed. Get out. This world of pain, we have to walk into that world with our kids. They're given to us by Rabbeinu Shalom. They are our gifts. So we must walk into that world with them together. We must start at a place where I feel, I resonate, I am with you, I don't blame you, I don't judge you. And that whatever I do with you, whatever response, reaction I have to you is with kindness, is with love, is with sensitivity and understanding. Doesn't matter what you do. I don't care what it is you ever say. I used to suggest to the men, the little tefillin, the little mirror you have for tefillin, keep one in your pocket. If you have a kid in crisis, keep one in your pocket. Before you walk in the house, take a look. Have a look. Are you smiling? Are you warm? Do you look loving? The ladies have that, compact thing, right? You have that, that mirror thing right in there. Take a look in it. What do you look like? Do you think your daughter, your son is really going to be happy to see you the way you look? Take a look in that mirror first and ask yourself, when my child sees this face, what will they see? Will they see my love, my caring, my acceptance? Or will they see my pain, my misery, my disappointment? And if you think they might see the latter, excuse yourself, disappear, go somewhere. Get busy. Go do the laundry. I don't care. Just do something. Go to the base of Medrash. But don't go home. Don't be in front of hurt, pain, troubled, traumatized children with that face. We daven to Rabbeinu Shalom, and we connect to Rabbeinu Shalom as the Av Harachamon. How many of us would connect to Rabbeinu Shalom if he was pointing an angry finger at us and making us feel like 2 cents? To understand this sugya, it's taken me on a tremendous journey, and the journey is one of development. I'm constantly trying to deepen my awareness. Here, I must confess, it's a little intimidating because I have a feeling one or two of you might have heard something that I've said in the past. Is that right? But they say, Ein beis hamedrash b'lo chidush. So I'm hoping I can say something you haven't heard. Who knows? One of you is going to say, no, Avi sent that to us 3 weeks ago. We got that clip. Where did he get it? I have no idea, but he got it somewhere. I think he has a video camera in my house somewhere. He has more clips than I have. He has clips I didn't even do. I don't know how he did it. And they're clips of me. He has clips where I look young. They're amazing. I want to talk about a disorder, and I'll sort of weave this in. By the way, let's all be very honest. I have till 4:15. Now, I think by now everyone realizes I could probably talk for a while. We have two options here. There are two different subjects, actually, in this session. One, I've just about begun to introduce. The other one I haven't even talked about yet. We're meant to talk about two subjects. One is creating resilience in all our children. Not just your kid, not just your struggling child, but all our children. And I have a focus on that I'd like to share that I think is crucial. The second one is my personal bias that I believe that unless we work very stark on our shalom bias, we are not going to succeed here. The key, the anchor for all this is our shalom bias. Now these are two different drashas. What I'm willing to do is do a proper job of the first one. And if there's no time for the second one, we're going to find another time in the schedule. I just don't think there's another option. I don't want to compromise you. And if there's time, there will be time. But I'm definitely not going to just do two drashas in one and pretend it was clever and look how Russell's brilliant. Look how he did that. It's just confusing. They're two different drashas, and I want to separate them out. So I want to talk about the first one, and if that's okay, that we're great. And we'll see how the time goes. And, if you fall asleep, I'll end. They said, my wife says she married me for my accent. Apparently my accent keeps people awake. It sounds intelligent. They say the British accent, you could say anything and they think, wow, he's smart. Mary had a little lamb. No, she really did. I want to talk about a disorder that's both simple, profound, and crucial to understand. I want to teach you how to, so to speak, avoid or remediate that disorder. And in doing so, I hope that you'll walk home with something that's profoundly compelling and helpful to all the children in your family, to everybody, so that everyone will get some sort of benefit from this, all of us. The disorder is what's called, in global terms, attachment disorder. I want to talk to you about attachment disorder. So attachment disorder is a fascinating global disorder. By the way, this would be a good time just to check once again that all the phones are off, including vibrate. Everything's off, thank you. So what is attachment disorder? So I could give a whole lecture. Actually, I'm not the best person to give a lecture on this. Maybe I'm probably one of the worst people to give a lecture on this, but at least I understand the concept. And I'll share with you the basic Rashi Prakim of attachment disorder. Attachment disorder, or problems of attachment, are referred to as problems that children have in their early childhood, where they don't bond successfully, correctly with their parents. They don't feel attached to their parents properly. Where for reasons let's get outside any concept of blame, but let's just talk facts instead, and everyone can take their own out of this. Attachment disorder has a profound impact for those people who have issues of attachment. Because life, as we live it, we, human beings, we're social creatures. We live in a context where we have relationships. And within the context of those relationships, that's where we flourish. That's where we become fulfilled. And without that, we end up living in a world of almost like psychotic loneliness, where actually the psychotic can live much more happily alone because they create their own world of attachments and people and an environment to live in. For the rest of us healthy people, we need relationships to thrive. And unless we have meaningful relationships, we don't thrive. As I've said many times, one way of looking at happiness is that happiness is the product of long-term meaningful relationships. It creates an internal sense of happiness. I feel happy, I feel gesund. A person who can walk into a room and feel connected or able to connect, rather than walk into a room and feel terribly insecure and uncomfortable because I don't know where to sit. You come to a Shabbos and you're not sure where to place yourself. That's a problem of attachment. Whereas others seem comfortable to walk into a room and just greet and meet and sit, who are considered to have healthy attachments. Having healthy attachments is actually probably the foundation for having a healthy and productive life. If you can have healthy attachments. And you learn those healthy attachments from home, from your parents. And if you're fortunate enough, you grow up in an environment where those healthy attachments are passed on to you. One of the observations I've seen working as I do and have done for 30 years in the Olam HaTorah, in the Frum world, is the impact of the Holocaust on damaging attachments, on creating attachment disorder. How many of the survivors survived, but they survived without the ability to have healthy attachments. They didn't have them, it was taken from them. They never had healthy attachments because of the war and what they went through. And Memela, they never were able to pass on healthy attachments as well as they could have or should have, had they not gone through the war, to their own children. And I'm seeing, at least in my work, third and fourth generation of children struggling with attachment that goes right back to the Holocaust. That goes right back to the war. Healthy attachments are crucial because they give us the ability to be resilient. Resilience means you go through or can go through trauma, crisis, pain and struggle and bounce back. Everyone has the kasha. Oh, you say it's sexual abuse. I know someone. It's usually themselves, by the way. They just don't want to say it. I know someone who was abused and they didn't go off the derech and they live a productive life. And it's a fact. You cannot possibly say that every single person who was ever sexually abused went off the derech. It's not true. Actually, those who were abused and didn't go off may need to thank the Ribono Shel Olam and their parents, could be, because they had healthy attachments growing up. And when you have healthy attachments, it gives you the kaiches, the ability to negotiate and navigate life with all its ups and downs. And that's the world the Ribono Shel Olam was meant to give. That's what He gave us. He gave us a world called Olam HaNisyonos, Olam HaNisayon, as the Mesilas Yesharim says. Olam HaTlaos, a world of crises and struggles. And when you have healthy attachments to begin with, when you feel connected in the right way to your parents and your family, so you're given the wherewithal through those healthy attachments for how to go through the struggles of life, even trauma, and even if you take a dip, which is natural, through the trauma, but you bounce back. You bounce back because there's something given to you that's in you that makes you survive. This is what we have to convey to all our children. We're busy worrying about these pratim of how the child in crisis is going to affect the other siblings. And so we're busy trying to protect them and they shouldn't talk to each other and we send this one on vacation and this one. We're doing all these interventions. And actually, most of it fails. Most of it fails, and in fact, we can damage healthy children, so to speak, more by all these interventions of trying to save them, because we end up making them feel insecure. We end up making them feel, I'm terrified of you and for you. I'm terrified every second you're going to go off the derech too. And in doing so, I destroy the underlying concepts of good attachments instead of building it. Your terror and fear, which is understandable, we're parents, and we don't want to see our other kids hurt, or this one in crisis worse. And that terror and fear actually undermines having good attachments. Poor attachments can happen in a heartbeat. We don't even realize. I'll give you a mashal. Just a mashal so you understand. A couple have a baby. They have a little boy. And they're a couple of days before the bris. Mother is nursing. It's not going well. The baby's colicky. And just at this time, unfortunately, the father has lost his job. There is no parnasa. Running around trying to raise money. Bills are flying in every direction. And as he comes into the bedroom to discuss with his wife, how on earth are we going to make a bris? We've got no money. How are we going to do this? It's embarrassing. What are we going to do? He notices out the bedroom window his car being towed. We got the picture? Now, there is no model, as I will show you shortly, of greater healthy attachments than a nursing mother with her child. There is no model of a healthy, you'll see soon. That is the healthiest model of secure attachments. That's the best. That's what we try to emulate the rest of our lives, that experience for the child. So here the child is, in the embrace of his mother, being nursed in the security and comfort that provides, while the father comes in and has a meltdown, watching the car being towed, frustrated about his whole life situation, throwing the bills on the bed, and basically having a mini panic attack about the sorrows that they're in, and this bris that he has no clue how they're going to be able to afford, etc., etc., etc. The mother understandably resonates to his deep anxiety and pain and tightens up. She feels threatened. She feels his anxiety. And the child who's being nursed converts the experience of utter cat's whiskers, of the experience that you cannot package a better experience than being nursed as a child. That's it. That's life is downhill from then. Let's face it. Right? Nothing will ever be that good again. Right? And in that moment, his parents are both having panic attacks, not blaming anyone, I'm just describing the Matthias. They're falling apart, there's angry words, there's sounds of nervousness and anger that is now permanently connected in the baby's psyche, primitive developing psyche, with sustenance, with nurture, with touch, with being cared for. It's now merged together into one, where the experience is one that's potentially frightening. And so later in life, a person has struggles with intimacy and has no clue why, or where it came from, or why this connectedness, this feeling of connectedness is terrifying. I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop. My expectation is that any moment now, this wonderful experience is going to be ripped from me, and I have no idea why, and never will. I'm trying to bring you into the world of how ignorant we are about these sugyas. We think we know, and how little we really know. And then I get the Rebbe years later with that little boy who calls in the parents and then calls me in extremely angry about, I've gone out of my way for this kid more than anyone. And every time I get close to him, he runs away. There's something wrong with your kid. And everyone's clueless. I have no idea what you're talking about. And meanwhile, deep in his unconscious, primitive developmental psyche, in his brain patterns, is a relationship between intimacy or closeness or caring and fear and anxiety. Take that model and just multiply it by hundreds of thousands of scenarios, and then ask ourselves, do we really understand our kids? Do we really have a right to criticize them? Do we really have any havamina of why they do what they do, when and how? Do we really think their behavior is intended? It's reactive. It's a deep program inside them of fear and shame and a relationship to stuff that is pre-conscious. Pre-conscious. It took me years in the sugya of sexual abuse till I discovered a prat, a detail that Pasha blew me away. The issue about the babysitters. I don't know if Avi ever shared that piece with you. One of the children I was working with, a young lady who was off the derech, and I discovered that about a third of these struggling sexual abuse victims get worse in therapy, not better. And I called my colleagues, lots of them, and I asked, tell me, be honest, this is happening to me, is it happening to you? Could you look at your records? And we started looking at our records and discovering that, you know what? It is about that. And about a third of the kids, the abuse victims, you send them to therapy, they get worse. Well, why is that? Are we that bad at what we do? Like, what makes that happen? And I had no clue, but I realized it was true, and I kept my eyes and ears open for ideas and thoughts. One day I was doing a group with a bunch of girls, and one of them was exceedingly nasty towards me. Exceedingly nasty. Rude, cursing me, all sorts of stuff. And I asked her respectfully permission to challenge her. Could I challenge you? You can if you want. I said, no, I'm being honest. I want to know if you want. Will you allow me to challenge you? Can I push you? It's not going to be pleasant, but can I push you? Because something's going wrong in this therapy. Do you mind if I push you? Because I think there's something we don't know. And she said yes. I moved my chair very close to her, respectful but close, and I started pushing her buttons. Halfway through, this young lady got up, ran out screaming out of the office, out of the building. I was with a co-therapist. I asked the other therapist to stay with the other girls, and I ran after her into the street, behind the building, and found her behind a bush, crying hysterically and screaming. And basically screaming, you're going to kill me, everyone's going to kill me, I'm going to kill myself, I'm done. And I conducted a session with her from the other side of the bush to this screaming, pained young lady, where she finally told me what it was all about. And she said, you keep using the wrong language. All the treatment we were trained in was a treatment about villains and victims. About villains and victims. And we would always try to tell the kids, you're the victim. You're not a villain, you're a victim. This happened to you. And we totally forgot that about a third of them were repeating. And in her case, we're using little babies that they babysat for their own pleasure, to pleasure themselves with the private parts of little babies. For me, aside from helping her, changing the language, and we did help her, and she was able to heal, but the penny dropped to something I found so astonishing, and it ties into this attachment disorder issue. Because what I realized was the number of little kids who absolutely swear up and down, I was never molested, don't talk about it, I don't want to hear about it. Now, for most of the kids who say that, they're just too embarrassed. Or they've repeated, so they can't talk about it. Till they're in a framework where it's safe to talk about it. Because they've not only been molested, they've molested. So how can they talk about it? So they deny the whole sugya. But then I realized there's loads of them out there who simply have no memory. There is no memory of it. And suddenly the penny dropped. And I started digging and doing some research with Rishus. And discovered that yes, indeed, it turned out that these kids had been molested as babies by babysitters. Kids who were available to babysit. At one point, I recommended never having a child in crisis babysit alone. Always have two. Just never let one do it alone. because I found out it was quite prevalent. Once I knew, I was able to ask. Once they realized I wasn't trying to hurt, but I was trying to heal, the kids started telling me. So from early on, they're already detached. Because imagine a kid who grows up experiencing, relating to themselves somehow sexually. How do they exactly go through our system and survive? How on earth could they possibly go through our system? Either a boy with the issues of Shmiras Haguf and Shmiras Einayim, or a girl with the issues of tznius, every second tznius, when she or he are already interested in themselves sexually at age 5. So they detach. They detach from us. They detach early on because unconsciously they're already aware or feel, based on the culture of this world that I'm growing up in, I don't belong here. And that's pre-conscious. That's pre-conscious. They're not aware of that. It's just how they feel. And we dare come along and blame and judge and criticize and punish these poor children. How dare we? These are issues of attachment, Rabbi say. And I want to break down attachment for you so everyone goes home crystal clear about attachment. So you can take these ideas and concepts to your struggling children, to your non-struggling children, non-presently struggling NPSCs, non-presently struggling children. But you can have a framework for how to run your home, how to relate to your children, all of them. Because I contend that if we can presume that the underlying reason that some children get affected by different types of trauma and others don't, if the underlying reason is actually poor attachments, and we can strengthen those attachments, then what we're doing is healing. We're setting the framework, we're setting the picture for healing to occur and for protection and strengthening and creating resilience in all our other children. Do you see that? Attachment is crucial. Children with poor attachments are the ones who are going to have the PTSD attacks, the post-traumatic stress disorder attacks that completely dysfunction them and throw them off. See, in the language of, you all know PTSD, right? The result of trauma, of sexual trauma, or any form of trauma, is post-traumatic stress disorder. Listen to the language in the book. In the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of the American Psychiatric Association, it says the following. The person suffering with PTSD, think about your struggling kids. As I say these words, I'll say it slowly, I'll repeat it because it's too much once. The child with PTSD will have a severe psychological reaction at exposure to internal or external features or events, it's not the right word, I forget it, that symbolize or resemble an aspect of the original trauma. It's a mouthful, I know. They will have a severe psychological reaction at exposure to internal or external cues that symbolize or resemble an aspect of the original trauma. Why? Why is that? Why do they have that reaction? So there's a little part in the brain called the amygdala. It's a little tiny part in the brain. And one of the functions of the amygdala that's so crucial is self-preservation. It's there to protect us. And the amygdala is like a scanner. It's like a hyperbolic, a bowl, a scanning machine, the best one in the world. And it scans all the time, everything and everyone, scanning for potential threats. It's always doing this. Now, if someone's not gone through trauma, and they've had healthy attachments as a child with their parents, then their list of traumatic events that the amygdala is looking for are extremely limited. Actually, the amygdala may not even know what it's looking for. It may be looking for something so rare and extreme because this person grew up with such healthy attachments, so free of trauma, that the amygdala is scanning for stuff that's so unlikely. So this kid lives a healthy life. They're able to attach. They're able to connect. They're able to get over problems. They do not view insults or threats as cues that symbolize or resemble an aspect of the original trauma because they didn't have one. Masha'en Kain, a trauma victim, they do. For them, the amygdala is scanning for every event, internal or external, that could symbolize or resemble an aspect of the original trauma. I had a kid walked into my office once, years ago. This was my first years of practice. And the boys, not the girls obviously, but the boys who came in, when they left, sometimes I would give them like a pat on the shoulder. You did well today. Obviously, no one does that anymore. But I did. One day, I gave this kid a pat on his shoulder. My hand never reached him because he ducked away from it, ran out, and didn't come the next 2 weeks for his session. I called the school, I called the parents, we couldn't understand it. I called my supervisor, who did understand it. And lo and behold, I had no idea at all. I was dealing with a molestation victim. So the hand touching his shoulder, can you see, would be a cue, both internal and external, that symbolizes and resembles an aspect of the original trauma of being touched without rishus. And he freaked out. He had a PTSD. He acted the way he's meant to. His amygdala was scanning me the whole time. The girls, the victims who sit in my office, one time I did a session with a young lady on a merpeset in Israel. And she wanted to be outside, not inside. And I had my sunglasses on. And she was very shut down. After a while, she said, cursed me out and let me know she's not continuing unless I remove those sunglasses. And then I realized why. She wanted to see where my eyes were looking. She wanted to see. And she couldn't see. So she was having a PTSD attack right there and there. We have to understand attachment, I believe, is the foundation issue behind all of this. If we can develop healthy attachment, we must develop healthy attachments. There's no if here. Because, whereas we want to be successful, we must develop healthy attachments. And if you look at all the lamdas, I think that Avi for sure has been trying to help and share, it really goes back to this. This is what it's all about. This is the essence and the underlying concept behind it all. Healthy attachments. So how do we do it? How do we develop healthy attachments? So there's a concept I'm going to give you. This is the take-home, in my humble opinion, of all the interesting things I may have to say, I hope, over this weekend. This you take home. This you chazer. This you live with. This is the essence. This is probably, for me at least, I'm sure there are other speakers will have incredibly important things to say. For me, I think this is the most important thing that I'm going to share. So what are healthy attachments? Well, actually, one more comment first. Sorry. I said last night, I shared a thought I've been having a long time. You know, we talk about on the derech and off the derech. We all know this is like very loose and imperfect language. So over the last year or so, I've been developing a better understanding for myself of all the groups, so to speak. Who are they? What are they? I hope to publish an article soon, maybe for Shavuos, on this subject. And in this article, I will describe what I consider to be the 4 groups outside the 5th group who are doing fantastic in our communities. We have a group, I'm willing to say 20% of our kids, 1 in 5, who are doing amazing, boys and girls, who are actually doing outstandingly well. I'm betting you, if I had the money and I did the research, we'd discover they're the ones with good attachments. The circumstances of their lives, whatever they were, led to them having great attachments with their parents. And it's those attachments that allowed them and freed them to do what all kids should be entitled to, which is to steig in our wonderful system. We have wonderful, caring people wanting to help all the kids. And yet only about 20% do this amazing, fantastic result of success in the system. And about 75-80% don't. But I want to tell you what I see in that 75-80%, so you won't go crazy. There are 4 groups in that, and they all need us to work on attachments. If we work on attachments with them, we will help all these 4 groups steig. I'm not trying to be clever when I say this. I'm trying to be, a little, to give clarity. But these groups I call as follows: ONTDU, on the derech, uninspired. ONTDD, on the derech, disillusioned. OOR, off our derech, still from, and the OTD, off the derech. These 4 groups take up about 75-80% of all the kids who go through our system and matriculate from our system, if they get through at all. We see yeshivas and seminaries around the world where I do workshops in these places, and they complain about the kids. And these are the kids who are either ONTDD or ONTDU. They're either on the derech uninspired. It's like, they do it, but there's no juice there. There's no battery plugged in. There's just, they do. We all have, everyone's smiling, so you know these kids. We have the ONTDD, the on the derech. They dress the part, they dress the way they're meant to. They basically do what they're meant to do. However, they're so disillusioned. These kids, I give them an example. The boys here they'll miss a Ma'ariv after a chasna. They're not getting out of bed to daven Ma'ariv. They come back Ben Azmanu from yeshiva, and Kriya Shema, Sofsman Kriya Shema, that's in yeshiva maybe. That certainly doesn't belong Ben Azmanim. I think there's a heter. The girls, the ONTDD will dress the most unsneers as Hilchas Sneers will allow. Whatever's the absolute edge I can push it to, that's where I'm dressing. These are all kids damaged with poor attachments. They don't have attachments to us properly. You try talking to them, you'll soon see you don't have good attachments with them. And then off our derech, they're actually pretty good, some of those kids. They're like at least finding a derech. They're at least trying to find a derech. And off the derech. All these groups, this is about, in my opinion, about 70% of our kids, 75%. They will all change their lives, Rabbi Say, if we work on attachments. Mesilas Yesharim, I'm afraid, is not going to reach those kids. Musa is not going to reach them. Angry faces, critical comments, opening up, the Mishnah Brura, you see Sofsman Kriyashma, is not going to help. But attachments, working on attachments, yeah, that is going to help. It's going to change them. I'll show you why later on, but I see that I'm so grateful because I see the heads nodding that you're already deherring why. It's Pasha this is going to work. And all the rest is for Fallen. It's a waste of time and, in my opinion, destructive and abusive. Because all the rest of the stuff detaches our kids. You yell at a kid who comes home about Sofsman Kriyashma. You disconnected him from Yadus. Yeah, but he's got to know. He's got to know. Does anyone know what that means? He's got to. She has to know. She shouldn't dress like that. She has to know. This is all a build-up to what I want to give you now, the insight of how do we deal with attachment disorder. How do we change and reattach to our kids, all these kids, all of them. So we can create these healthier homes, we can recover from the damage of the war. Truly recover. And I think these kids are taking us to a place where we have no choice but to recover. There is no other option but to recover. Recovering from the war is not building beautiful yeshivas and having elegant bar mitzvahs and fancy chasnas with raised letters on your benches. That's not recovering from the war. We're so, in a sense, we're so proud of ourselves, of our recovery. But forgive me, it's an external recovery. We're yet to see the beginning of the internal recovery from the war. I mentioned yesterday one young girl, 14-year-old, brilliant, insightful young lady, said to me years ago, I was very, very close with her, and she said to me, I think we're the moral conscience of something that's decayed about Yiddishkeit. I think we're the moral conscience. She was right. I don't think she realized how right she was. And by the way, I mean, to put it in context, what's the ultimate attachment disorder? From the Eibishter, where we don't connect with Rabbeinu Shalom, where we don't govern our lives thinking, was will the Eibishter from me? The famous Mezeritcher we all talk about, the Siva Shalom brings it down, where he said on the pasuk, on the Mishnah by Hillel, Madasonelach lechavrich lesovid, and Zog the Mezeritcher, he puts the comma in that different place, that beautiful insight. Because how does Madasonelach lechavrich lesovid? How does that answer Kol HaTorah Kulai? That's Ben Adam Makom, but where's Ben Adam Makom? It's only Ben Adam Chavera. How's that answer? So the Mezeritcher moves the comma. Madasone loch lechavrech comma lesovid. What's bad? What disconnects you from God? Comma lesovid. Don't do it. Because we have to have attachment to God. We're meant to be connected to Rabbeinu Shalom. So the ultimate attachment disorder is the one where we detach from Rabbeinu Shalom. And the ultimate goal of all parenting is to create a metaphor of attachment to a parent. And on the back of that attachment, a child, a healthy one, can grow up and attach to the Av HaRachamon, to Rabbeinu Shalom. Could there be anything more important than working on healthy attachment? Micro and macro, Proteus and Clolius. The whole life of Yadus is to reconnect. And no, raised lettering on benches has nothing to do with connecting to the Rabbeinu Shalom. If someone disagrees with me, please come over and prove it to me. And how many types of herring we have at our Kiddush, I'm not sure the Eibishter really cares. Attachment, Rabbi Sai, what we're going to do in reattaching, which we have to do for these children in crisis, we have no option. There is no option to help them save their lives, but to reattach, to repair the damage. And for all the other groups that I've mentioned, they don't have a chance either unless we reattach. And they're the ones at risk in your home. They're the ones who are at risk from your children in crisis. Because the other group have healthy attachments. And guess what? The healthy attachment kids learn from you as you do this with your children. They become proud of you. They learn love and Torah and Dveikus Bayisbach. They learn the good stuff from you and they grow from that too. And it makes them supercharged with their lives as they see us reconnect with our children, not give up on our children. As Rabbi Yoshev said, if you want to give away any of the kids, give away all the rest of the kids. Just keep the struggling ones. I'm not sure he realized that meant me keeping most of your kids, but there you are. I hope I've made the case for attachment because now I'm about to tell you how to do it. You're ready, you're primed. To me, you see, my passion on this is not just another cute drosha or concept. This is it. This is the drosha. And I can feel myself tear up as I say it to you. Because I know the truth of it. I've watched too many homes and families, and I've watched those who did this, who worked this system. And they see the results. I saw it with my children. They're all shown Torah mitzvahs, despite what they went through. I can tell you it works. And I believe this is our job. This is our God-given job. So everyone write this down. 4 words, and then I'm going to explain them in detail. They are the 4 S's. They are safe, secure, seen, and soothed. S-O-O-T-H-E-D. Soothed. Safe, secure, seen, and soothed. Seen. S-E-E-N. The 4 S's. You remember, first of all, I'm going to chazal this again and again as we go forward. They are the 4 S's of attachment. To create healthy attachments, we need to work on the 4 S's. To repair damaged attachments, we need to work on the 4 S's. And I will explain them. They're not complicated. Safe. Let's start with safe. A child has a right to grow up in a home where they feel safe. In generic, general concepts and terms, safety means things like, I'm not going to be hurt or abused. At nighttime, The windows and doors will be locked. I'll be safe from people intruding and hurting me. I'll be safe from siblings hurting me unnecessarily, in a traumatic way. I'll be safe from parents venting their own unresolved issues that they should have been in therapy dealing with. These are entitlements of children. When we think of trauma and traumatic events, most people think immediately the concept and notion of trauma. We think of concepts like sexual abuse, an event. We think of notions like a car crash where someone died. They were traumatized. They had a traumatic experience. When we think of trauma, most of us think of it as an event. And we have a very, very, very hard time relating to trauma other than it being an event. Many, many, many years ago, I found a piece of research which tragically I lost, and I can't find it again. It was a piece of university research that I utilized to describe what I called learning trauma. Learning trauma that occurs to kids who have genuine learning disabilities, who are then balkorcha put into an environment, a school system, that demands of them academic excellence if you are to be appreciated and worthy in this world. The experience this group of researchers had happened to have been with a Catholic school system that had also studied some of their systems that had very little other than academia. They didn't have drama and sports and other things. They just had academia. And they studied the brains of kids who had diagnosed learning disabilities over their school years, and they studied their brains when they finished high school. And they found out with MRIs that the brain lit up the exact same as it did for a rape victim or for someone who was in a severe car crash where someone died. They had the exact same trauma impact on their brain. And to me that was pashut. That a kid who has a severe learning disability and then goes through a system that essentially tells him, you are only worthy, you're only the apple of my eye, you're only the cat's whiskers. If you study well, you learn and you're gewaldig. If you're, by the way, these words, as you know, I feel should be banished permanently, but you really banished. And I say it within that framework. But you're only really successful if you're a big balkishan, if you're a mitzuyan in learning. Then you're someone. Then you're someone. This creates trauma, and there's a whole different type of trauma that has nothing to do with an event. And what we refer to, or I referred to this for years as developmental or relational trauma. Developmental trauma. Now, developmental trauma has 5 different aspects to it. 5. They're all forms of abuse. The children experience abuse that deprives them of the safety, the feeling of being safe in this world. They do not feel safe. And without safety, you cannot have good attachments. And these 5 types of trauma are as follows. You could list them. They are physical trauma or physical abuse, emotional abuse, Psychological abuse, if you look in the books in the secular world, they call that intellectual abuse. I call it psychological abuse. Sexual abuse and spiritual abuse. All 5 of those forms, 5, physical, emotional, psychological, sexual, and spiritual. Physical abuse is obvious, where a child grows up in a home where there's physical abuse. You know, one wise person, I'm not sure who said it, but I heard it said over, I think it was so precise, who said that yesterday's discipline is today's abuse. And it's such a great line. I'm not sure it's totally accurate, but it's a great line. I grew up in a world where we got caned. The cane stood behind the urinal, the bath, the toilet. If we did something really wrong, then my father, Russel, sent us for the cane, and you had to come and present the cane to my father, where he was standing. You were then banished to the bedroom, where you had to be mischaret on the chet, and I imagine he knew, put on 5 more pairs of underpants, to protect yourself. And then he came in and sat with us, calmly. About 20 minutes later, what did you do? What was wrong about it? Did you commit yourself not to do it again? Bend over, and you got caned 3 times, and that was the end of it. Do that today, you'll probably go to jail. You'll probably go to jail. Physical abuse, the world changed. Most of us grew up in a world where Tzvei Pech answered most problems in life. You don't need therapy. Tzvei Pech and you're done. I grew up in a world where the threat of Tzvei Pech worked. My father gave us a look. If we didn't chant, "Please, Mummy, darling, may I leave the table?" and we got off a chair, he looked at us, and that was it. We grew up in a world where all that was okay. And today's world, that's abusive. And the real abuse of it is not the event itself, it's the deprivation of safety from a child. It makes a child not feel safe. And if they don't feel safe, you undermine their attachments. And if you undermine their attachments, you deprive them of resilience for life's problems and struggles and issues. Do you see it? So it's irrelevant whether I have a lumdus or not, whether they should feel that way. No one cares about my lumdus. The world changed, Rabbi Say. Physical abuse, it's over. You can't hit your kids anymore. You can give an insult punch to a little kid that walks in the street, and you go like that to insult it. And you should, it's a mitzvah to do it. But that's about it. So most of us have learned that lesson. What about emotional abuse? And the connection between emotional abuse and not feeling safe, and therefore not being resilient. Emotional abuse. Imagine the look on the face, the look on your face of disappointment in your child's behavior. That's emotional abuse, Rabbi Say. See, once upon a time, we had one look from my father, we shaped up. We shaped up. He just gave us one threatening look, and that was it. One disappointed look from my mother, and we all scampered and washed the dishes and realized we were wrong. In this world, that look of disappointment confirms the depths of their neshamas that I am a useless person, and it is therefore abusive. And it undermines feeling safe. A child has a right to come home to smiling parents. A child should never, ever walk into a home without being greeted by a smile. And if you're too busy cooking or too busy on the computer, you turn to your child first, give them a smile, apologize, tell them, I'll be right with you, Shefala, in 1 second. I just need to finish this. Here, stand right here. Wait 1 moment. Do you understand? It's emotional abuse, Rabbi say. To deprive, once upon a time, the deprivation of love from a child, depriving a child with love, motivated them to want to get that love back, and it would motivate their behavior. Today it motivates a little boy to go and find a little girlfriend. It doesn't motivate them at all in a positive way. It undermines their attachments. It undermines their ability to feel safe, to feel protected. They need our love and our kindness. That doesn't mean being weak and giving in on everything. I can say to my child, Shefala, I am so sorry, it's bedtime. I really feel sad for you. I do. Oh, but it doesn't change the fact it's bedtime. I'm so sorry. And they say, yeah, but I wanted everything like this and I didn't. And you say, yes, I know. I really know you want another drink and just to play the Lego a little longer, and to do this and just finish that. I get it. And I feel so sad it's bedtime. But it is bedtime. As opposed to what most of us grew up with, Svei Patch, that solves bedtime. This world, they need healthy attachments. And those healthy attachments can only come in a way that we make them feel safe. It's emotional abuse to do that. It's emotional abuse for us to constantly be looking sad around our kids. It's actually emotional abuse to be saying Tehillim and crying your head off sadly about your child every Friday, standing there weeping away, where you have to light early so you can redo your makeup because you know exactly what's going to happen. And you do that with your kids' knowledge is emotional abuse. Then there's psychological abuse. That's even worse. You think you're ever going to make a good father the way you behave? You think you're going to be a good mother? Let me tell you a few things. You need to really shape up. You're never going to make a good mother the way you are. No one's ever going to marry you like this. Number one, there's kfirah. It's actually not true. Unless you're God, because God's in charge of shidduchim. She may not marry the person your ego needs her to marry. That may be true. But chances are she'll get married. So it's a lie. It's psychological abuse. Adarabba, you will get married one day. And Mitzvah Hashem, someone somewhere is going to see the beauty in you. Even if you're going through a hard time now that many people can't. I absolutely guarantee you, one day, someone will look in your eyes and they will see your inner beauty and they're going to want you. Don't worry about it. And everything other than that is psychological abuse. It's psychological abuse to tell a kid you're never going to count to anything. Look, I mean, let's face it, unless you shape up, you're never going to be successful. How are you going to make parnasa? How are you going to do anything? You're just a loser. Like, come on, you're going to lie in bed all day. That's going to make you successful. That's psychological abuse. You're meant to say, you can lie in bed as long as you want. One day you're going to get out of bed, turn on your engines and be successful. I know you. You're an amazing human being inside. And you have a tekufa to go through that's hard for you. And one day you'll get through that tekufa. And you will be amazingly successful. Meanwhile, schlaf good, Schäferle. Schlaf good. All these 5 undermine, take from us the ability to make our children feel safe. That's just one of the 4 components. They deprive them from safety, and safety deprives them from attachments. Any one of them undermines healthy attachment. And healthy attachment takes from a child the ability to be resilient. In which case we're setting them up to fail. That's safe. Secure. Child is entitled to feel secure. Security means they have knowledge and awareness that life has a certain expected hamshacha. Life is going to happen in a certain way. I feel secure that the Shabbos table is a secure place to be, where I'm not going to be humiliated because I didn't learn my Parsha sheet. Or I'm not going to be embarrassed because someone asked me to say Advar Torah and I have no clue which Parsha it is this week. I feel secure that my parents are not picking on each other, sniping at each other, biting each other. I feel secure that my parents are married and they stay married and they care for each other. I feel secure in the knowledge that despite the fact, as a child in crisis, that I drive my parents meshuga, which I know I do, despite that, I can rely on my parents to be mechazik each other, to love each other, to help each other. And I feel secure, and I feel secure in this environment. I feel secure that when you go to camp is going to happen. There's not going to be long drushes of pain about no one's going to take you. Well, camp can't even apply to. Anyway, we can't afford it. I feel secure knowing that if I need extra tutoring and mentors and who knows what else and a guitar, I feel secure in the knowledge that my parents will do anything to get me what I need. They do not look at me as a burden or as an obligation, but as a gift to their life. I feel secure that I am a gift to them. I feel secure in their relationship. I feel secure in the way they deal with me and my siblings. I feel secure that the environment is a loving and warm one, that my parents create that environment for us. I feel secure walking in the house. Security is a crucial aspect of having good attachments. I feel secure that my parents will not go through my belongings and then find something which they have no clue how to handle and freak out because they shouldn't have found it in the first place, because they've no clue what to do with the information. So don't find it if you don't know what to do with it. I feel secure that my parents have faith in me, that this is a tekufa. That when I get to being 30, I'm not going to have 3 earrings dangling and 2 bars here and half a cut here and a mohawk green over there. That my parents, I'm secure in the knowledge that we all know I'm going to get through this. What, they idiots? Don't they chap? I mean, how many 30-year-olds do you see walking around like 15-year-olds in Borough Park? right? With all those earrings and the mohawk. It goes, Rabbi say, it goes. They need your security in yourself. That this will all pass, given time, and given love, and given caring. It creates security in them, and the confidence that there's a future. And security contributes to good attachments. And good attachments contributes to resilience. We're getting it? Great. They need to feel secure that tuition will be paid. They need to be secure that you will find, I don't care how many yeshivas you get thrown out of, there are more. We will find them. They need that security that we don't give up on our kids. We act. We do. And when they feel secure, they have good attachments. When they have good attachments, they're resilient. Our kids need to be seen. Safe, secure, seen. They need to be seen. That means every single child we have to realize is unique. We're so foolish. We're so out to lunch. We have these kids and we actually think, they're going to be in our image. We think that little boy is the next Briskerov or the next Rebbe. And then we had that little girl is Sarah Schneer. We got her neshama. We were Zeicha. We live in La La Land. These neshamas come back and they need to be seen for who they are. Chanoich lena al pi darka. Every good drasha, someone has to say this very loud as if it means something. No one has a clue how to do it. No one even knows what darko is. No two parents agree on the darko exactly of their children. So exactly how are you doing this at your Shabbos table with 8 kids? And yet somehow if you say it loud enough in a drasha, and you say it with a heavy Yiddish accent, it means something. But there's some emes in it. Listen to the emes. We have to pull out. We have to help emerge. It's the difference between being a mechanech and a melamed. A melamed installs. A melamed puts information into. He's melamed. He puts information into a child that the child didn't have. He uses skills to get the information into the brain of the child. A mechanech, chinuch, is like a Chanukas Abayis. Chanukas Abayis is where you proclaim the potential of this shtub. To do chesed, to bring up a family, to do simchas. It's a proclamation of potential. It's a Chanukas Abayis. Chinuch is about looking at the potential, extracting from a child, and then showing that child, this, Shefela, is your potential. This is who you are. It's nothing to do with me, it's about you. That's Hanech Lenapi Darkoin. It can only be Al Darkoin. And if you do Al Pidarko properly, then a child grows up with healthy attachments, and they become resilient, and then they can do Ma'chovas Adam Ba'olamod, the same Vav, Mesilas Yesharim Ba'olamai, his world. He finds his place in this complicated world Hashem gave us, because we made our child feel seen. They're not just the kids. Let's get the kids in the car. Let's get the kids in the bath. Let's get the kids to school. Let's get the kids. Let's just get the kids. Where are the kids? Where's the kids? Get it. It's like one blob called the kids. Let's get the kids. Kids. It's the kids. No such thing. It's ridiculous. You bench your kid Friday night, starting with the most struggling to the least, and you give them, you whisper in their ear something unique and special about their potential, about your greatness. If your child does something unique and special, you reflect it back to them. You show them who they are. You help them see themselves. You help them see their uniqueness. They have to be seen. They have to recognize that you recognize their God-given uniqueness. And everyone is different. No one's the same. There is no two people the same on earth. We all have different potential. And it's all God-given. And it's all gewaldig. And chinuch is that job of bringing it out. Is hotzor, it's being motzi the potential and showing it to them. And we have to exploit every opportunity to see their strengths, see what's special about them. Show them they're godless. Show them their greatness. Show them their uniqueness. Just show it to them. Don't make it into a mussar drosha, and therefore you need to be and you should dress right, because just show them what's special. Celebrate the unique, special nature of your child. Help them feel seen by you. See their struggles. See their pain. Don't tell them to get over it. How long is this going to last? I see you. And I see your pain. And I can be with your pain. I can be with you. I can do it. I see it and I accept it. If we can make our children feel seen and safe, if we can make them secure, so that we develop their attachments with us, develop good attachments. Resilience. We help them be resilient. And then they go through life that Hashem gave us, the Olam Atlos, growing from all those struggles. And the last one is soothed. Safe, secure, seen, and soothed. Child gets bullied at school. They have a right and expectation for their parent to hold them and soothe them. They fall off a little tricycle when they're a kid. They do not deserve to be yelled at. Who left the tricycle out? Why did you ride it? Who let her ride? I don't get it. What are you, crazy? You scoop them up and you soothe them. And when they first work out that the way you stop a bicycle is by driving into a wall before they realize there are brakes, you don't yell at them about the broken wheel. You soothe them and gently teach them about brakes. Honey, there's brakes. They work. You soothe them through their life struggles. You soothe them when they're in pain, even if you're convinced they caused that pain to themselves. You brought this onto yourself. You see the way you dress? That boy took advantage of you because of the way you dress. That's what goes. Let's blame the victim. They have to be soothed. It doesn't matter what they went through. And they will go through their traumas and crises and problems and struggles and issues and difficulties. They will have the occasional too strong, too principled mechanech who makes them feel like 2 cents, or teacher who just throws them out too often. They'll have friends in the neighborhood who hurt them. Things will happen to our children, and it's so easy for us to jump up and just blame them. Well, if you hadn't done this, then that would have happened. You brought this on yourself. Didn't I tell you? How many times I tell you? So you got thrown out of school. What do you expect? You wore those shoes. Didn't we say you shouldn't wear those shoes? First you have to soothe them. They have to be fully aware that the first thing we do as a parent is we soothe their pain. You know what happens when you soothe their pain? Anyone done a course on active listening? Yeah, you know exactly what happens the moment you do it. You do it and they look at you and say, I feel so stupid, I shouldn't have worn those shoes, I'm such an idiot. And you never have to say anything. You just soothe them. Just hold them. And you say, yeah, I feel terrible for you. It must have been so hard for you and you really wanted to wear those shoes. Yes, but I was such an idiot. I shouldn't have worn those stupid shoes. They need your soothing. And guess what happens when you soothe the child properly? It all emerges out of them. All those cruel, rotten, horrible things that you have the Yetzirah to say to them to make them feel it was all their responsibility. And they brought all this on themselves. When you soothe them properly, and when they're brought up in an environment of safe, secure, seen, and then soothed, they tell it to you. They can take responsibility. And we don't have to sit there pulling out our hair if you've got any left. They don't have to worry about that. Because they own it. Because they're safe to own their stuff. Because they're attached to you. You attach them. They feel connected. They're not afraid of rejection. So then and only then they can own their stuff. The wheels go crazy. Why can't they just admit it was her fault and she did this and he initiated that? Can't they admit they did it? They did it. I don't get it. Like, why is it always about me? Why can't it be about them? They did it. I didn't do it. We have this huge Yetzirah just to lace it into them. But when you do safe, secure, seen and soothed, you've created attachments that creates resilience, and they own it. And they start crying, and they look at you and say, I feel like such an idiot, Tati. I feel like such a fool, Mummy. I shouldn't have done this. You told me not to. And I need help. I need to get to a therapist. I got to do something. As opposed to, I'm not going to any stupid therapist. Well, you need a therapist. You need 5 therapists. I don't know if any therapist can help you. You're crazy. You people are crazy. It's true. But when you do safe, secure, seen and soothed, and you create those healthy attachments, they turn to you and say, Mommy, Tati, I need help. I need help. Something's wrong with me. I don't know what it is. And you say, I don't know, Shafi, you look fantastic to me. You look amazing. I mean, first of all, just the fact that you could be aware and be insightful enough to say what you just said, it makes you unique. You're so special. You're so incredible. I'm not sure you need a therapist. They say, no, I really do. I'm telling you, I need help. I don't know. Really, you think so? I say, yeah, please, can I go? All right, fine, let me see if I can find a good therapist. As opposed to what most of us are doing, dragging her with her heels, making 2 grooves in the ground as we're dragging her through, and that's going to be a real productive session. Rabbi say it's safe, secure, seen and soothed. The underpinning of the sugya, I told you, if there's anything I can share with you that I think is helpful for all our kids, this is not just about the kids, about the struggling children. This is all of them. This is the recovery. This is survival of survival. This is the recovery, I think, from the Holocaust. This is God's mission. This is why He put us here. This is why He gave us these neshamas. And I believe, again, I can't prove this, but I think I'll be sparring Pasha common sense. If we were able, together, to create in these kids a sense of attachment to us, the safe, secure, seen and soothed, the ability to be resilient, to cope with life's struggles, adarabah, to grow from life's struggles, to rise up on the back of life's struggles, to see them as opportunities, not as interferences, to see this whole world as the home gym, where, the more resistance, the better. You don't grow. No pain, no gain. where they see all of our life as this magnificent spiritual home gym, where I'm going to have all this resistance trying to knock me off, but I'm going to exploit the resistance that Eibishter puts in this world to make me spiritually stronger. If we have the source as parents to do that, if we can harness our own kaiches, our own love, our own savlanut, our own patience, if we can harness ourselves to bring this to our children, we have created the metaphor that Hashem gave us children for, that they can then transfer those good attachments to Ribono Shel Olam. This is our tachlis as parents. This is why Hashem gave us children. And we're meant to create it. We're given the gift of this work. So we should all have the schusim. We should find the love in ourselves. We should definitely find the patience and the wisdom. We should work on ourselves first, so we have the kaiches to bring these healthy attachments to our children. And by doing so, I hope and pray we will bring them all to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and all to their own shleimus. Thank you very much.